In the depths of space, the explorer ship Odyssey cruised through the vast emptiness, a lone vessel far from the reaches of any known civilization. Its captain, Marcus Kane, a seasoned explorer with a sharp mind and a heart full of wanderlust, had spent decades charting uncharted territories. The stars were his only companions, and the mysteries of the galaxy were his passion. One day, as the Odyssey drifted through a remote sector of the galaxy, the ship's AI alerted Marcus to an anomaly. "Unidentified object detected," the AI chimed. Marcus leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. He adjusted the ship's sensors to get a clearer view. There, floating amidst the cosmic debris, was a massive derelict spacecraft. Its design was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen before, ancient, alien, and imposing. Marcus brought the Odyssey closer, his heart racing with excitement. He had stumbled upon countless relics in his travels, but this one felt different, more significant. As he docked with the alien ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to uncover something extraordinary. The airlock hissed as it opened, revealing a dark, silent corridor. Marcus stepped inside, his helmet lights cutting through the shadows. The interior was eerily quiet, with only the faint hum of the ship's ancient systems breaking the silence. Dust-covered consoles lined the walls, and strange symbols etched into the metal hinted at a civilization long gone. As Marcus explored the derelict ship, he stumbled upon a large chamber at its heart. In the center of the room was a stasis pod, its surface covered in a thick layer of frost. Marcus wiped away the frost, revealing a figure inside. A young girl, her skin a deep shade of blue, her eyes closed in peaceful slumber. Marcus stared in awe. The girl was unmistakably alien, yet there was a certain innocence about her. He checked the pod's systems and discovered that it was failing. The power source was almost depleted, and if he didn't act quickly, the girl would be lost forever. Without hesitation, Marcus initiated the pod's revival sequence. As the pod slowly powered down, the girl's eyes fluttered open. They were a striking shade of violet, filled with confusion and fear. Marcus raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." The girl looked at him, her expression softening. She struggled to sit up, her movements clumsy after years of stasis. Marcus helped her, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? And why was she alone on this abandoned ship? As the girl adjusted to her surroundings, she tried to speak, but her voice was weak, and her language was unfamiliar. Marcus could see the frustration in her eyes. He knelt beside her and spoke in soothing tones. "We'll figure this out together. I'm Marcus, and I promise you're not alone anymore." The girl gazed at him, and for the first time, she smiled. A small, tentative smile, but one that filled Marcus with a sense of purpose. He had spent his life searching for the unknown, but now he had found something more, a life to protect, a mystery to unravel. The journey ahead would be challenging, but Marcus was ready. He had faced countless dangers in his career, but none as important as this. Together, they would uncover the truth behind the girl's origin and the fate of her people. The vast expanse of the galaxy awaited them, and with each step, the bond between Marcus and the girl would grow stronger, shaping their destinies in ways they could never have imagined. As the Odyssey set course for the nearest star system, Marcus focused on understanding the girl he had rescued. He quickly realized that despite the language barrier, the girl was highly intelligent. She absorbed new information rapidly, her eyes following every gesture Marcus made as he tried to communicate with her. Days passed as they traveled through space. Marcus spent his time teaching the girl basic words in English, using simple objects and gestures. She proved to be a quick learner, and soon she could communicate simple ideas. "Echo," she said one day, pointing to herself. Marcus smiled and nodded, accepting the name she had chosen. Despite the progress, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Echo than met the eye. She had an otherworldly quality about her, and strange things began to happen around the ship. Objects would shift slightly when she was nearby, and once, when the ship encountered a meteor shower, the smaller rocks seemed to veer away from the Odyssey, almost as if something had pushed them aside. Marcus kept these observations to himself, not wanting to alarm Echo. Instead, he focused on making her feel at home. He modified the ship's environment to suit her needs, adjusting the temperature and humidity to match the conditions she seemed most comfortable with. He also introduced her to various foods, experimenting until he found something she liked, a fruit native to a distant planet that she seemed to enjoy. As Echo grew more comfortable on the Odyssey, she began to open up to Marcus. She shared snippets of her past, using a combination of words, gestures, and drawings to convey her story. Marcus learned that she had been part of a royal family on a distant planet, but her people had been attacked by a hostile alien race. In a desperate bid to save her, her parents had placed her in the stasis pod and sent her ship away from the conflict. Marcus listened intently, piecing together the fragments of Echo's story. He realized that she was not just any girl. She was a princess, the last of her kind. The weight of her past weighed heavily on her, and Marcus could see the pain in her eyes whenever she spoke of her lost family and home. Despite the sadness that lingered over them, Marcus and Echo grew closer. They developed a routine, working together to keep the ship in order and passing the time by exploring the various star systems they encountered. Marcus taught Echo about the wonders of the galaxy, showing her the beauty of distant nebulas, the majesty of giant gas planets, and the mystery of black holes. One day, as they were charting a course through an asteroid field, Marcus noticed something peculiar. The asteroids, which should have posed a significant threat to the ship, seemed to move out of the way as they approached. Marcus turned to Echo, who was watching the view screen intently. "Did you do that?" he asked, his voice filled with awe. Echo looked at him, her violet eyes wide. She nodded slowly, her expression one of uncertainty. I didn't want us to get hurt," she said softly. Marcus stared at her, his mind racing. Echo had abilities far beyond anything he had ever encountered. It wasn't just her intelligence or her ability to learn quickly. She had powers that defied explanation. And with those powers came a responsibility that neither of them fully understood. The discovery of Echo's abilities marked a turning point in their journey. Marcus knew that they needed to be cautious. The galaxy was full of dangers, and there were those who would seek to exploit Echo's powers for their own gain. But he also knew that they couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, they would have to confront the truth about Echo's origins and the fate of her people. For now, though, they continued their journey through the stars, exploring new worlds and uncovering new mysteries. Each day brought them closer to the answers they sought, but also closer to the dangers that lurked in the shadows. And as they traveled together, Marcus and Echo formed a bond that was stronger than any force in the galaxy, a bond forged in trust, friendship, and a shared determination to protect each other, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As the Odyssey continued its journey through the uncharted regions of space, the bond between Marcus and Echo grew stronger. They had become an inseparable team, navigating the wonders and dangers of the galaxy together. Marcus took on the role of a guardian and mentor, while Echo flourished under his guidance, her natural abilities becoming more apparent with each passing day. However, the more they traveled, the more Marcus noticed a shift in Echo's demeanor. While she remained curious and eager to learn, there was a growing sense of unease in her eyes, as if something from her past was beginning to resurface. It started with nightmares. Echo would wake in the middle of the night, her body trembling and her violet eyes wide with fear. Marcus would rush to her side, comforting her as best he could, but she rarely spoke of what haunted her dreams. On the few occasions she did, Marcus pieced together fragments of her past, the destruction of her homeworld, the terror of being hunted, and the final, desperate act of her parents to save her. Despite Marcus's efforts to create a safe and nurturing environment for Echo, it became clear that she was struggling with more than just the trauma of her past. Her powers, though still largely under control, would sometimes flare up unexpectedly. On one occasion, while practicing meditation exercises to help her focus, Echo inadvertently sent a wave of telekinetic energy across the ship, causing equipment to topple over and alarms to blare. Marcus knew they couldn't keep ignoring the growing danger. He needed to understand more about Echo's abilities and the full extent of what she was capable of. There was also the lingering question of her origins and whether others of her kind might still be out there, either as survivors or as those responsible for her people's destruction. Determined to find answers, Marcus began searching through the ship's database, sifting through every piece of information he could find about alien species and lost civilizations. He also reached out to old contacts, scientists, historians, and explorers he had worked with in the past, hoping someone might have heard of Echo's species or recognized the symbols she had drawn when recounting her past. During one such communication with an old friend named Dr. Ilara Voss, a xenobiologist specializing in rare and extinct species, Marcus found a potential lead. Dr. Voss was intrigued by the description of Echo's powers and the vague details of her homeworld. After days of research, she contacted Marcus with what she had uncovered. "Marcus," Dr. Voss said, her face appearing on the Odyssey's holographic communication screen, "I think I've found something. There's a legend, an ancient tale from a forgotten corner of the galaxy. It speaks of a race of beings known as the Nerio, highly advanced, both technologically and mentally. They were said to have extraordinary powers, abilities that allowed them to manipulate their environment and even influence the minds of others." Marcus listened intently, his heart pounding in his chest. "And what happened to them?" Dr. Voss hesitated. "According to the legend, they were wiped out by a rival species that feared their power. But some believe that a few of the Nerio managed to escape, scattering across the galaxy. If Echo is one of them, then she might be the last of her kind." The weight of Dr. Voss's words settled heavily on Marcus. Echo wasn't just special. She was possibly the last living remnant of an ancient, powerful race. The responsibility of protecting her had suddenly become even greater. "Thank you, Ilara," Marcus said, his voice filled with gratitude. This means a lot." "There's more," Dr. Voss added, her expression turning serious. "If Echo is indeed a Nerio, there could be others looking for her, not just those who want to help, but those who want to finish what they started centuries ago. You need to be careful, Marcus. You're both in more danger than you realize." After ending the transmission, Marcus sat in silence, the gravity of the situation pressing down on him. He couldn't let Echo fall into the wrong hands. They needed to stay ahead of anyone who might be searching for her, but they also needed to uncover more about her past if they were to have any chance of ensuring her safety. That evening, as they sat together in the ship's common area, Marcus decided it was time to tell Echo what he had learned. He explained the legend of the Nerio and what it might mean for her. Echo listened quietly, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "So, I'm the last one?" she asked softly, her voice trembling slightly. "We don't know that for sure," Marcus replied, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "But if you are, it means that your abilities are incredibly rare, and there are likely those who would do anything to control them. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next." Echo nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I want to learn more, Marcus, about my people, about my powers. I want to be able to protect us both." "We will," Marcus promised. "We'll figure this out together. But we have to be careful. From now on, we can't trust anyone unless we're absolutely sure they mean us no harm." As the Odyssey continued its journey through the stars, Marcus and Echo began to train in earnest, honing Echo's abilities while staying vigilant for any signs of danger. The galaxy was vast, and the shadows of the past were closing in, but together they were determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did they know, their journey would soon take them to the heart of an ancient mystery, one that would test their bond and their resolve to its limits. The answers they sought were out there, hidden among the stars, but so too were the enemies who would stop at nothing to claim Echo's power for themselves. The Odyssey's journey had taken Marcus and Echo farther into the unknown regions of space than Marcus had ever intended to go. The ship's sensors were constantly active, scanning for threats or any sign of the Nerew. But the vast emptiness of space seemed to offer no clues, only more questions. Despite this, Marcus remained vigilant, knowing that they couldn't afford to let their guard down. One day, as they were passing through a dense asteroid belt, the Odyssey's sensors picked up a faint signal. It was weak, barely detectable, but it was there, a repeating pulse of energy that seemed almost deliberate, as if someone, or something, was trying to communicate. Marcus immediately brought the signal to Echo's attention. "What do you make of this?" he asked, watching as Echo studied the readings on the display. Echo's eyes narrowed as she focused on the signal. "It's strange. It doesn't match any of the common frequencies or patterns we've seen before. But it feels familiar, somehow." Marcus frowned, considering their options. It could be a trap. "We've been careful to avoid detection, but there's always a chance someone could have found us." Echo nodded. "I know. But if there's even a chance that it's connected to my people, we have to investigate. We might find answers." After a brief discussion, they decided to follow the signal. Marcus altered the Odyssey's course, guiding the ship through the asteroid belt and toward the source of the signal. As they drew closer, the signal grew stronger, its pattern more distinct, until they finally arrived at its origin. A derelict space station drifting in the void. The station was ancient, its surface pitted and scarred from centuries of exposure to space debris. Large sections of it were dark, with only a few flickering lights hinting at any remaining power. It was a haunting sight, but also one that stirred something deep within Echo. "This place," she murmured, her voice tinged with a mix of awe and sadness. "I think I've seen it before in my dreams." Marcus glanced at her, concerned. "Are you sure? We can still turn back if this feels too dangerous." Echo shook her head, her determination unwavering. "No, we've come this far. We need to see this through." With the Odyssey in orbit around the station, Marcus and Echo prepared to board. They suited up in their protective gear and took a shuttle to the station's docking bay, where they were met with silence and darkness. The air was stale, and the station's systems were barely functional, but there was something unmistakably ancient and powerful about the place. As they made their way through the station's dimly lit corridors, Echo led the way, guided by a strange sense of familiarity. Marcus kept a close watch on their surroundings, his hand never straying far from his weapon. They encountered no signs of life, but the further they went, the more it became clear that this station was far from ordinary. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the heart of the station. The walls were covered in intricate symbols and carvings, their meanings long lost to time. In the center of the chamber stood a massive dormant machine, its design unlike anything Marcus had ever seen before. Echo approached the machine, her breath catching in her throat. This is a Nerew beacon," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "It's been waiting here, broadcasting that signal, calling out to any of my kind who might still be out there." Marcus examined the machine, noting the complex network of crystals and circuits that seemed to power it. "But why is it here? And why hasn't anyone found it until now?" Echo placed her hand on the machine, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the crystals began to glow, responding to her touch. The chamber filled with a soft, pulsing light, and a holographic display flickered to life above the beacon, showing star maps, data logs, and most importantly, an ancient message. The message was in the Nerew language, but as the hologram played, Echo's eyes widened in recognition. She listened intently, her expression shifting from confusion to determination. "What is it?" Marcus asked, his curiosity piqued. Echo turned to him, her voice steady. It's a message from my people, left here in case any of us survived. They were trying to escape the war, seeking refuge in a distant star system. But they knew they might not all make it, so they left this beacon to guide any survivors. The message includes coordinates, a place where they hoped to rebuild, far from their enemies. Marcus nodded, processing the information. So there could be others like you out there. Maybe even a safe haven. Maybe, Echo replied, her voice filled with hope. But the message also warns that our enemies might have found them. The coordinates could lead us to survivors, or to the remnants of a final battle. Marcus sighed, knowing the risks. We'll have to be careful. This could be exactly what we've been looking for, or it could lead us straight into danger. Echo nodded in agreement, but the determination in her eyes was unmistakable. I know the risks, Marcus, but I need to find out what happened to my people. If there's even a chance that some of them survived, we have to go. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then we'll go. We'll follow the coordinates and see where they lead. But we need to be prepared for anything. With the beacon's message downloaded and the coordinates set, Marcus and Echo returned to the Odyssey. The ancient space station had given them a new purpose, a direction in the vast expanse of the galaxy. But as they left the station behind, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that their discovery had not gone unnoticed. As the Odyssey set course for the distant star system, Marcus and Echo steeled themselves for what lay ahead. The path before them was uncertain, fraught with danger, but it was also the only way forward. Together, they would face whatever awaited them, determined to uncover the truth and protect each other at all costs. Unbeknownst to them, in the shadows of the galaxy, forces were already stirring, drawn by the reactivation of the Nerio beacon. Their journey was about to become even more perilous, and the bond between Marcus and Echo would be tested like never before. As the Odyssey hurtled through the void, following the coordinates left by the Nerio beacon, Marcus and Echo settled into a tense rhythm. The journey was long. The star system they were heading toward located in a remote and uncharted sector of space. The isolation of their travels was palpable, with the vast emptiness surrounding them only serving to heighten the sense of impending danger. Hiko spent much of her time studying the data from the beacon, trying to decipher any additional clues it might hold. Meanwhile, Marcus maintained a constant vigilance, his instincts honed from years of experience telling him that they were not alone. The feeling that they were being watched had only grown stronger since they left the derelict station, but the ship's sensors picked up nothing unusual. One day, as Marcus sat in the cockpit, scanning the star charts, Echo entered the room, her expression pensive. Marcus, I've been thinking, if the Nerio left that beacon, then it's possible they also left other signals, maybe even defenses, to protect their refuge. Marcus nodded, understanding her concern. You're right. If their enemies found them once, they might have set up traps or decoys. We need to be careful when we approach the coordinates. Echo hesitated before continuing. And if there are survivors, we don't know what state they'll be in. They could be desperate, suspicious, or even hostile. We can't assume they'll welcome us with open arms. Marcus gave her a reassuring smile. We'll be ready for anything, but we also need to remember that they're your people, Echo. If they've survived this long, it's because they're strong, and they'll see that same strength in you. Echo nodded, though her expression remained serious. I hope so, Marcus. I really do. As the days passed, the Odyssey drew closer to the star system indicated by the beacon. The tension on the ship was palpable, both Marcus and Echo keenly aware that they were entering unknown territory. Then, without warning, the ship's sensors blared to life, detecting an approaching object. Marcus. Echo called out, alarm in her voice as she looked at the readings. We've got company. Something's coming in fast. Marcus quickly took the controls, bringing the ship to full alert. The object on the sensors was small, but it was closing in at an alarming speed. It wasn't long before the ship's visual scanners caught sight of it. A sleek, dark vessel, its design streamlined and menacing. It was a hunter, and it was coming straight for them. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Marcus barked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. "We can't let it lock onto us." The Odyssey veered sharply, diving and weaving through space as Marcus pushed the ship's engines to their limits. The hunter vessel pursued relentlessly, its weapon systems powering up. Laser fire streaked through the void, narrowly missing the Odyssey as Marcus and Echo fought to stay one step ahead. But the hunter was fast, too fast. It began to close the distance, its weapons drawing closer with each passing second. Just as it seemed they would be caught, Echo's eyes glowed with a sudden intensity. She reached out with her mind, focusing on the hunter ship. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The hunter ship faltered in its pursuit, its movements becoming erratic. Then, in a burst of light, its systems overloaded. The vessel spun out of control, its weapons going offline, before it finally drifted, disabled. Marcus glanced at Echo, his breath catching in his throat. Did you just do that?" Echo's hands trembled as she lowered them, her face pale but determined. "I didn't have a choice. It was them or us." Marcus nodded, his admiration for her growing. "You saved us, Echo, but we need to know who sent that ship. Let's board it and see what we can find." They approached the disabled hunter vessel cautiously, docking the Odyssey with precision. Suited up and armed, Marcus and Echo boarded the enemy ship. The interior was dark, the emergency lights casting eerie shadows across the sleek metallic surfaces. It was clear that this was a ship built for speed and stealth, its crew focused on one thing: hunting. As they moved through the corridors, they found the ship's crew, two alien beings, unconscious but alive, clearly affected by the system's overload. Marcus and Echo secured them, ensuring they posed no threat, before heading to the ship's command center. There, they found a treasure trove of information: logs, communication records, and data files. As Echo accessed the ship's systems, she quickly discovered the truth. The hunter ship had been sent by a shadowy faction, one that had been tracking Neria survivors for years. They had intercepted the beacon's signal and followed it, hoping to find and capture any survivors, including Echo. "They were hunting me," Echo said quietly, her voice tinged with both fear and anger. "They knew about the beacon, about my people, and they were waiting for someone like me to find it." Marcus clenched his fists, his anger rising. "We need to destroy this ship and its data. We can't let them report back. If they find out you're alive, they'll keep coming." Echo nodded in agreement. "But we also need to be ready. There could be more of them out there, and if they're this close, we're running out of time." They quickly set to work, disabling the ship's communications and planting explosives to ensure it would be destroyed. As they returned to the Odyssey, Marcus initiated the detonation sequence, watching as the hunter vessel was consumed in a fiery explosion. With the threat eliminated, they resumed their course toward the Neria refuge, but the encounter had left its mark. The shadowy faction was real, and they were relentless in their pursuit of Neria survivors. Echo knew that their journey was now a race against time, a battle to reach her people before the hunters did. As the Odyssey sped toward the unknown, Marcus and Echo prepared for the challenges ahead. They had survived the first encounter, but they knew that the true test was yet to come. And in the darkness of space, the hunters' allies were already mobilizing, determined to finish what their fallen comrades had started. The Odyssey finally entered the star system indicated by the Neria beacon. The system was unlike any they had encountered before, dominated by a massive dying star surrounded by a dense asteroid belt. The light from the star was dim, casting a ghostly glow over the barren planets that orbited it. The coordinates led them to a small, rocky world nestled deep within the asteroid field. "This is it," Marcus said, his voice tense with anticipation. "This is where the beacon is pointing." Echo peered out at the view screen, her violet eyes reflecting the dying star's pale light. "It doesn't look like much," she murmured. "But if my people are here, they must have found a way to survive." Marcus guided the Odyssey carefully through the asteroid belt, navigating around the massive rocks that drifted lazily through space. As they approached the planet, Echo's heart raced. She had imagined this moment so many times, the possibility of finding her people, of discovering what had happened to them. But now that they were so close, a part of her was afraid of what they might find. The planet's surface was barren and rocky, with no signs of life visible from orbit. But as they descended into the atmosphere, the Odyssey's sensors picked up something, a faint energy signature emanating from beneath the planet's surface. "There's something down there," Marcus said, adjusting the ship's trajectory to follow the signal. "An underground facility, maybe." They landed in a narrow canyon, the ship's landing gear touching down on the rocky ground with a soft thud. The air outside was thin and cold, the sky a dark, oppressive gray. Marcus and Echo suited up and prepared to disembark, their nerves on edge. As they stepped out of the ship, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying with it the scent of dust and ancient stone. The energy signature was stronger now, emanating from a narrow fissure in the canyon wall. The opening was barely visible, hidden in the shadow of a towering rock formation. "This must be the entrance," Echo said, her voice barely audible over the wind. Marcus nodded, checking his equipment one last time. "Stay close. We don't know what's waiting for us down there." They entered the fissure, the narrow passage leading them deep into the planet's crust. The walls were rough and jagged, the air growing colder as they descended. The energy signature grew stronger with every step, guiding them deeper into the darkness. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground cavern. The sight that greeted them took their breath away. The cavern was enormous, its ceiling soaring high above them. The walls were lined with strange, luminescent crystals that bathed the chamber in a soft, ethereal light. In the center of the cavern stood a massive, ancient structure, clearly not of human design. It was a fortress, carved from the rock itself, its architecture both alien and majestic. "This is it," Echo whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is where they've been hiding." As they approached the fortress, the massive doors slowly opened, revealing a group of figures standing in the entryway. They were tall and graceful, their features unmistakably Nereid. Their skin was a pale, iridescent hue, their eyes glowing with the same violet light as Echo's. One of them stepped forward, a regal figure dressed in flowing robes. She looked at Echo, her expression a mixture of surprise and recognition. You are one of us," she said, her voice echoing through the cavern. Echo nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I've been searching for you. I'm the last of the royal family. My parents sent me away to protect me. I didn't know if any of you had survived." The Nereid leader regarded Echo with a solemn expression. "We thought we were the last. But seeing you here, it gives us hope." The leader introduced herself as Melis, the last surviving member of the Nereid Council. She explained that after the destruction of their homeworld, the surviving Nereid had fled to this remote planet, using their advanced technology to conceal their presence and survive in the harsh environment. They had lived in hiding for years, fearful that their enemies would one day find them. "But now our enemies have found us," Melis said gravely. "We detected the hunter ship that followed you. They are getting closer." Marcus stepped forward, his expression serious. "We destroyed the hunter ship, but there may be more on the way. We need to prepare for an attack." Melis nodded. "We have defenses, but we cannot hold off a large-scale assault. Our only hope is to escape this planet and find a new refuge. But we are few, and our ships are old." Echo's eyes shone with determination. "We'll help you. We've come this far, and we're not going to abandon you now." The Nereid began to mobilize, preparing their ancient ships for evacuation. Marcus and Echo worked alongside them, sharing their knowledge and resources. As they made their preparations, Echo felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had found her people, and now it was up to her to lead them to safety. But even as they prepared for the journey ahead, the shadow of the hunters loomed large. Marcus knew that time was running out. The hunters would not give up so easily, and the next time they came, they would bring an armada. The final battle was approaching, and the fate of the Nerio hung in the balance. As they worked tirelessly in the depths of the hidden sanctuary, Marcus and Echo knew that they would soon face their greatest challenge yet, a fight for survival that would determine the future of an entire race. The hidden sanctuary was abuzz with activity as the Nerio prepared for their evacuation. Marcus and Echo worked alongside Malus and the other Nerio, assisting in the final preparations for the departure. The ancient ships, though outdated, were being readied for a desperate escape from their sanctuary. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone knew that time was running out. Marcus and Echo had taken on the task of coordinating the defenses and ensuring that the ships could take off safely. The hunters, having tracked their signal, were closing in on their location. The time for hiding was over. The Nerio had to make their move. The cavern was transformed into a bustling command center. Nerio engineers worked tirelessly to get the ships operational while others prepared the sanctuary's defenses. Marcus, his hands flying over the control panels, could feel the weight of the impending battle pressing down on him. Echo, meanwhile, had taken on a leadership role among her people. Her resolve and newfound confidence inspired those around her. She was no longer just a lost princess, but a beacon of hope for her people. Her violet eyes, once filled with uncertainty, now burned with determination. As the first signs of the hunter ships appeared on the scanners, the Nerio launched their defensive systems. A series of energy shields sprang into action, shimmering in the dim light of the cavern. The ancient fortress was now a fortress in every sense, ready to defend against the encroaching threat. Marcus and Echo stood together in the command center, watching the view screen as the hunter ships approached. The odds were not in their favor. The hunters outnumbered them and had superior firepower, but Marcus was resolute. He had fought countless battles in his time, but this one felt different. It was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of an entire race. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked Echo, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Echo nodded, her expression grim but resolute. "We have to be. There's no turning back now." The first volley of enemy fire struck the sanctuary's shields, causing the cavern to tremble. The Nerio returned fire with their own energy weapons, bright bursts of light illuminating the dark cavern. The battle was intense and chaotic, with the sanctuary's defenses struggling to hold against the overwhelming onslaught. In the midst of the battle, Echo's powers began to manifest in ways that surprised even her. She focused her telekinetic abilities to help guide the Nerio ships through the chaos, pushing aside debris and deflecting enemy fire. Marcus, fighting alongside the Nerio defenders, marveled at Echo's strength and control. As the battle raged on, the Nerio ships began to lift off, one by one. The process was slow and fraught with danger, but they were making progress. Marcus and Echo watched from the command center, their hearts pounding as they saw the ships ascend through the atmosphere and into the cold void of space. Just when it seemed like the battle might be won, a massive explosion shook the cavern. A direct hit from the hunters' weapons had breached one of the energy shields, and a section of the fortress was engulfed in flames. The explosion sent a shockwave through the sanctuary, causing the remaining ships to falter in their ascent. "No!" Echo cried out, her voice filled with anguish. "We can't lose everything now." Marcus knew that they had to act quickly. He rallied the remaining defenders and coordinated a final push to hold off the hunters long enough for the last of the ships to escape. With Echo's help, they managed to stabilize the situation and buy enough time for the final ships to launch. As the last ship disappeared into the depths of space, Marcus and Echo stood together, watching the sanctuary's defenses crumble around them. The hunters, seeing their prey escaping, began to retreat, their mission partially successful but incomplete. In the aftermath of the battle, The sanctuary lay in ruins, but the Nerew had escaped. Marcus and Echo, exhausted but triumphant, made their way back to the Odyssey. They had lost much, but they had also gained something invaluable, a chance for a new beginning. As they flew away from the ruined planet, Echo looked out at the stars, her heart heavy with the weight of what they had left behind. But there was also a glimmer of hope. Her people were safe, and they had the opportunity to rebuild and thrive. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We did it, Echo. They're safe now." Echo turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything." Together, they set course for the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey had been long and fraught with danger, but they had emerged victorious. And as they ventured into the depths of space, they carried with them the hope of a brighter future, a future where the Nerew could rebuild and thrive, freed from the shadows of their past. The Odyssey sailed through the stars, leaving behind the ruins of the sanctuary and heading toward a new horizon. The story of Echo and Marcus was far from over, but their journey had forged a bond that would guide them through the challenges to come.